The MP40 is one of the most iconic weapons in Battlefield 5 from World War II, much like the FG42, Tommy gun, or even the SMG44, all of which we've reviewed. It's a recognizable weapon everybody knows from that military conflict. But of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's any good. And as such, in today's weapon review, we're going to be talking about the stats of the MP40, the performance that it brings to the table, the specializations available and that I would recommend for the weapon, the comparative performance, both in terms within the SMG class of weaponry and of course outside of it, and lastly, how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. We start off then with the stats. Maximum damage here 25, minimum damage 13.2. No surprises there, a 4-shot kill up until and including 10 meters in close quarters, a 5-shot kill up until including 30 meters, from that point onwards a 6, 7 and eventually even an 8-shot kill from 75 meters onwards. In terms of fire rate, it's low for an automatic weapon in Battlefield 5, but not necessarily too low for the SMG category of weaponry. Plenty of slow firing SMGs available to the medic in Battlefield 5. 539 rounds per minute there, paired with a decent magazine size at 32, and at least for the short reload, that's when one or more bullets are left in your mag, at 1.96 seconds, a pretty decent competitive reload. The longer reload there coming in a little bit longer at 3.333 seconds. Not something you necessarily want to have to do in a pinch in close encounter combat. Not that you should be running out of bullets anytime soon, given the relatively large mag size with a relatively low fire rate. Recoil is not necessarily high, but well, on the higher end for what the weapon is, given its damage output. 0.42 in terms of vertical recoil initially, and an additional 0.042, or 10% of the initial value, added for each consecutively fired automatic shot. Horizontal recoil sits at 0.175, evenly of course to the left and right, and its spread values are, well, typical for SMGs at 0.15 while aiming down sight and not moving, 0.3 while doing the same and moving simultaneously, and for hipfire while moving and hipfiring simultaneously, you're looking at about 1.2 minimum degrees of spread. The specializations or upgrades then. Plenty to choose from and a little bit of a difficult choice at that. Do you try and specialize the weapon at what SMGs are generally good at, excellent hipfire, or do you go for what the weapon amongst the SMGs is more known for or specialized in, and that would be of course more medium range combat, focused more on an ADS style of gameplay? Well, the choices that you do have, for the first one at least, are 15% faster reload times or 33% faster ADS times. Then you can either go the left hand side, going for an enhanced grip, giving you better accuracy while hip firing, or the right hand side, going for a ported barrel, significantly decreasing your horizontal recoil from the aforementioned value of 0.175 to 0.117. If you went for the left-hand side, you're going to be forced to stay there for now, going for the polished action, giving you, of course, better sustained accuracy while hip-firing. And if you went for the right-hand side, you're looking at barrel bedding, giving you improved accuracy while standing still. Your last choice then is between a recoil buffer for a vertical recoil decrease or custom stock, improving your accuracy while moving simultaneously. Now, while my path has generally focused on making the weapon better at ADS fire, I'm not necessarily sure I would still recommend the vertical upgrade, instead going possibly full right hand side, because when closer inspecting the stats and also my personal experience with the weapon, the vertical recoil upgrade is, well, not necessarily too impactful on the vertical recoil that you experience. It's relatively small upgrade, whereas the horizontal recoil upgrade is quite significant, and thus maybe improved accuracy while strafing back and forth, thanks to the custom stock upgrade, may end up giving you more benefits than simply going for that slightly decreased vertical recoil. Especially given, of course, that vertical recoil is definitely controllable on the MP40. Having talked about stats and specializations then though, how does the weapon perform to the competition? Well, the closest competition, and that's simply because it's essentially identical, is going to be the Sten Gun. Same fire rate, same damage model, all in all almost the same weapon. Small differences in vertical recoil, the Sten losing out slightly there versus the MP40, but the MP40 losing out against the Sten when it comes to recoil when hip firing. That's essentially the choice you have to make between these two weapons, which you think looks better, and are you more of the hip fire guy or more of the ADS guy? All the more reason, in my opinion, to specialize the MP40 for ADS fire while focusing maybe the Sten Gun on a more hip fire focused role. But in terms of true competitiveness, I think that ZK383 maybe the better one to compare the MP40 to, because if it's going for a long-range ADS SMG, the ZK383 is one of, if not the one to beat, thanks to its bipod. It does have a marginally lower fire rate than MP40, but on the other hand comes with, well, half the horizontal recoil to begin with, which of course makes the weapon significantly easier to use, and at the same time, if you upgrade it accordingly, you can turn it into a close quarter beast at 700 plus rounds per minute as well. Then of course not necessarily too ideal for long engagement distance combat, but then again you still have that bipod which you can make use of in those situations. The real competition for the medic, however, doesn't lie in similarly medium long range medic weapons, but in the close quarter medic weapons and, well, other class of weaponry such as the LMGs. In terms of the simple truth, medic SMGs perform poorly at anything beyond 30 meters, where they have a bullet to kill disadvantage versus their competition, and at the same time usually a lower fire rate than that competition. You generally lose your firefights on one-on-ones, you have to go for flanks. And while I can already hear some of you saying, well, the MP40 is a medic weapon, and thus as medic you have the advantage of consistent access to smoke and health, I agree with you fully, and that does make a difference to the effectiveness of the weapon. However, not only can you better utilize those gadgets with close encounter combat weapons, the Tommy Gun, the Zumi, or the ZK383 accordingly upgraded, maybe even the MP28, but also we shouldn't be balancing or comparing weapons on the basis of what class they belong to, instead of just the weapon performance on themselves. Classes, again, then should be balanced amongst themselves separately to make sure that none of the gadgets, be it health, be it ammo, be it whatever explosives the assault can muster, are too dominant on the battlefield and give a class an advantage over the other instead of just simply a different role on the battlefield. That aside then though, the last weapons that I do want to compare to the MP40, which illustrate the points I've made, are the Lewis Gun and the Bren Gun. The Lewis Gun is essentially same fire rate, slightly more recoil, but I would argue at the engagement distances I'm fighting at with the MP40 and the Lewis Gun, both are just as controllable to me, despite the Lewis Gun having more horizontal and vertical recoil, and a bigger mag it has as well, and not to forget the significantly better damage model. In my opinion, a better weapon for anything but, close encounter combat where you have to hip fire, where of course the MP40 will beat it out. The Bren Gun is an even more extreme example of that. It loses a little bit of fire rate, just like, of course, the ZK383, but brings in the better damage model, brings in almost half of the horizontal recoil that the other weapon does, and in all just performs better, even at 30 meters, than the MP40 does. The saving grace of the MP40 is, as previously said, that it is a medic weapon, and it's hip fire, which means if you're flanking people and in close quarters against enemies which are not equipped with the right weaponry, you can perform quite well. If you get into a one-on-one against a player who knows what he's doing and has the according weaponry equipped for a close encounter combat fight, you're going to lose. I lose firefight for firefight for firefight, coming up against people just running at me with Zomies, ZK383s with the fire rate upgrades, Tommy Guns, most of the assault weapons, even some of the LMGs. That can be frustrating, especially when you're supposed to be the close encounter focused class, and as such, the MP40 is really very much dependent on how good your enemies are and, well, how good you are at getting flanks, because for direct engagements, as typical you would expect for an SMG, get in people's faces, hip fire them down, it's not your ideal weapon, and such will probably not give you the kind of performance that you're looking at. So play this weapon a little bit more passively, a little bit more defensively, or if aggressively, extremely flank focused and not one-on-one as you would play some of the other more faster firing weapons in Battlefield 5. That being said though, I'd love to know what your experiences have been with the MP40, if you enjoy it, or if, as I do, you think most of these slow firing SMGs in Battlefield 5 need a significant upgrade to their damage model. We've talked about that in past videos, no need to repeat it just here. So leave all that, as well as of course your usual feedback and comments down below in the comment section, or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you enjoyed the video, found it helpful or interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.